I wonder how many right-wingers are going to try to say that Trump only went to Epstein's island in order to fight against Epstein and sex trafficking. It's pretty hilarious. Everybody knows Trump was friends with Epstein and Maxwell, yet want to pretend that Trump wasn't involved in anything with what they're doing.
We do start, though, with some breaking news at this hour. Hundreds of court filings expected to begin to start being unsealed today. They will contain the names of people associated with Jeffrey Epstein, the late sex offender and disgraced financier. This all comes after a New York federal judge ruled last month that there's no legal justification to conceal more than 150 names previously redacted in these documents. Now, the
Especially if they're high-ranking, like government officials or rich people and stuff like that. If they're a part of this, they definitely should be ousted and then charged for being involved in child sex trafficking.
The records are part of a settled civil defamation lawsuit relating to allegations of Epstein's former paramour, Ghislaine Maxwell, facilitated the sexual abuse of one of his victims. ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky and ABC News legal contributor and trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer are joining me for more on this. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Aaron, let's start here with you. We're, of course, waiting here on what would now be the 8th round of unsealed records in this case. What can you tell us about these documents so far?
The documents are all part of this defamation lawsuit that settled 6.5 years ago between Virginia Giuffre, who alleges that she was one of Epstein's trafficked victims, made to have been a sex slave and ordered by Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell to have sex with powerful men, allegations that the men who've been named publicly have denied, and Maxwell too. But this lawsuit settled 6.5 years ago, and gradually the record.
It is wild how the information on these people were redacted. It is rich people paying off certain people to protect themselves.
Associated with it have been unsealed. The names that are going to come out are listed as Jane and John Does, and most of them have been publicly associated with Epstein before to varying degrees. People like Prince Andrew, who Giuffre alleged she was ordered to have sex with, which he denied. They settled their own lawsuit. And people like former.
Well, if you're settling a lawsuit, that means you're guilty. You want to pay hush money to people so that they don't expose you even further because you know you're going to lose the actual lawsuit in court. So Prince Andrews should be arrested.
President Bill Clinton, who has never been accused of any wrongdoing associated with Epstein, but who flew on Epstein's private plane multiple times. So those are the kind.
Okay, well then he needs to be heavily investigated about what he was doing on Epstein's plane and how much he knew. If he knew anything was going on and didn't report it, well, he should be punished for that.
Kinds of names that we expect to be unmasked in records, but we've known about many of them for years.
And Brian, let's take that to you. What is your sense here on how these records remained under seal for so long in the first place, especially considering what Aaron alluded to there, that many of these names have already, in a sense, been made public?
Well, with part of the names, well, we don't know. Some of them could be affiliates of Jeffrey Epstein. Some of them can be Jane Does. We're seeing that in some of the filings. But in terms of the length of
the names of the victims shouldn't be released, but the names of the assaulters should be released. Any adult that flew on Epstein's plane should be released to the public, and those people should be heavily investigated in their participation as to what was going on the island.
these records being under seal, it's all about the privacy interests of those people associated with this list, especially the Jane Does. We've already seen that 2 Jane Does have come forward since December 18th, when the judge made the ruling that this last batch of information will be released, and said, hey, I have some privacy issues as to why I believe my name should not be released. One of those Jane Does got a 30-day extension, and another one's being reviewed. But ultimately, anyone who didn't come forward or the rest of the names, there seems to be no privacy right or argument to be made, and that's why we're seeing a release at this time.
Okay, anybody that is any adult that uh, has participated in the child sex trafficking doesn't have any right to privacy whatsoever. You're a criminal, and once you participate in, sex trafficking, you basically give up your rights to privacy.
And so it's not just the names, though, or perhaps it is, Brian. I mean, what is the importance here to know that these documents will have some of these names, but they don't explicitly state, how the person is associated with Epstein? Why unseal their names if that's the case?
So it's really just because people have been searching for answers to these questions since this lawsuit has been settled. And ultimately, the judge is saying, if I have no legal grounds to hold this information, if there is a request like ABC does with FOIA requests or other requests for information from cases, congressional decisions, whatever it may be, the court will make a determination as to whether or not they have any power to withhold that information. But in terms of what information we're going to get, context is going to be a big thing. It's going to depend on where this information is grounded in the emails, call logs, travel logs. Are we just going to see that, hey, this person was called by Jeffrey Epstein, or they visited his location multiple times? It could.
Okay, but why is Jeffrey Epstein calling you? Like, this dude is heavily involved with, sex trafficking. If he's calling you, there be some questions.
Lead to more questions and hopefully some answers.
And some real big questions about when and where these people were affiliated with him. And Aaron, to you, what is the timing now looking like as when we could actually see the release of these documents?
It really could come at any time. We saw an order from the judge earlier today who said that the parties have indicated they will begin the unsealing as part of her order sometime later today. So it's expected at any time. And I think Brian's context is important because many of these people may be just folks lawyers were interested in talking to as part of this long settled lawsuit, people who may have worked for Jeffrey Epstein on his private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, or
Okay, well, people who worked for him, yeah, they should be questioned as well. I mean, how do these people who are working for Jeffrey Epstein on his island not know that there's something going on when a bunch of kids are being brought in?
people who may well have been victims of his alleged sex trafficking. So many of the names, some of them bold-faced, some of them not, many of them have long been associated with Epstein, and in fact, some of them may well have already testified at trial when Maxwell was convicted of aiding Epstein's deviant sexual behavior.
And we all know that Trump was long-time friends with both Epstein and Maxwell, have many pictures taken with both of them.
All right.